Hello, and welcome to my review for Star Wars A New Hope. There you go, there's a lightsaber, sure, and Star Wars shirt, whatever. So yeah, A New Hope, Star Wars, it's the 40th anniversary today, at least of the the first release, the American release. 40th anniversary. The Star Wars original trilogy is my favorite kind of film of all time. I find it very hard to kind of separate them. I kind of see them as all just one long film. But usually if someone asks me what my favorite one of the original trilogy is, I usually say A New Hope. It changes a lot. One week it could be Empire, the next week it could be Return of the Jedi. But usually my favorite, I say, is A New Hope. And I'm going to review it today, because I haven't reviewed it on this channel. And it's the 40th anniversary, so I may as well. So obviously, this review will contain spoilers. If you haven't seen this film by now, you really should have done, because it's great. So obviously, the story follows, to begin with, obviously, the plans to the Death Star from Princess Leia given to R2-D2. R2-D2 and C-3PO escape on an escape pod, land on Tatooine, get picked up by Jawas, dropped off to Luke Skywalker, Uncle Owen. He obviously finds the message, finds Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan plays the message, and his parents die, or uncle and aunt die, not parents, sorry. Uncle and aunt die. They go to Mos Eisley to get a ship to go to Alderaan. They get Han Solo, obviously. Alderaan gets blown up. Princess Leia watches it, and then they go to the Death Star, get Princess Leia out. Kind of get her, go back to Yavin 4, plan how to destroy Death Star, and then they blow it up. And that's the movie. So it's, I guess you could say it's kind of a simple story of, the hero's journey. It follows the hero's journey, obviously. But the film is great. Obviously, there are so many great scenes about it. Scenes in it. It's actually a very funny film. It's a lot funnier than people kind of give it credit for. Like, a lot of people talk about so many of the great things in it, but no one really brings up how quite funny it is. There's the great scene with Han Solo where they're on the Death Star and he's talking to a guy, and he keeps rambling on, and he asks the guy how he is, and then he just shoots the control deck or something, and says boring conversation anyway, and there's a scene where he runs down, charges in, turns the corner. There are all these stormtroopers, so there are funny scenes, and in fact that's one of the only scenes that was good, that was the good specialized edition that George Lucas added. It's one of the few good scenes, because in the original cut, he runs down, turns the corner, and there are only like 3 stormtroopers there, but in the special edition he made it a bit better, actually. That's one of the few changes. Obviously, the special edition isn't very good. There are some of the most bizarre changes. The random CGI rocks in front of R2-D2 for no reason. There's the most just ridiculous thing where one of the creatures literally walks in front of the frame and blocks the entire frame, and it's awful CGI as well. And there's that stupid scene where they're going into Mos Eisley, and then it cuts to a different scene of Mos Eisley, and there's a guy on like a bike or something, he almost crashes into something. It's so awful. I don't know what George Lucas was thinking. So most of the changes are awful, and there's that horrendous Jabba scene, absolutely horrendous, and he walks over Jabba's tail and it looks awful. Yeah, some of the scenes in that are pretty horrendous. But aside from those scenes, everything else is great. I love, obviously, that first amazing shot. You see the blockade runner fly in, and then the Star Destroyer just goes on forever, almost. And obviously the practical effects, the models are amazing. They look better than a lot of CGI today. The entire film looks better than a lot of films today, because, there's the models that look great. All the places are either on location or sets that look amazing. So everything is great. The Yavin 4 set is great. The Death Star set, of course, is great. Every set is great. The locations are amazing. All the designs of the ships, obviously, the TIE Fighters, TIE Interceptors, Y-Wings, X-Wings, the Millennium Falcon, all the creature designs, all the droids are amazing. They're all like these practical droids, and they all have lots of distinct kind of looks. There's like the mouse droid, the gonk droid, and the R2 units, and the other little droids here and there. And the other creatures, obviously everything in the cantina is great and creative and looks really good. The Jawas, the Tusken Raiders, just everything. The creatures, the droids, the ships, even the weapons, they're just so well designed and all look great. And obviously the sound design is amazing. The sound of the TIE fighters is one of my favourite things ever. The sound of, the lasers coming from the blasters or the ships is amazing. One of my favourite sounds, though, is when they power up the Death Star. The Death Star, to shoot, the Death Star laser. When he pulls that lever and it goes, whoom, that sound is amazing. For some reason, it's a really satisfying sound. So I love that. Just the sound design is great. And just a little sound here and there, like the sound of the mouse droid and stuff like that. It's amazing attention to detail. And obviously the sound of lightsabers. The lightsabers are so amazing. Like that fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. I know a lot of people don't like it, and I can see why. It is very kind of slow compared to stuff from the prequels and even stuff in the later films, but I quite like it. It's these two older people, especially Obi-Wan, fighting, but I even though it's slow, I still think it's really well done, and I prefer it to a lot of the fights in the prequels. Because I'm not the biggest fan of the lightsaber battles in the prequels. I think they're just kind of ridiculous. They're either over-choreographed to the point where there's no tension, because it just looks like a choreographed fight and not a realistic fight, or they're Obi-Wan and Anakin flipping over lava on, like, floating rocks or some shit, and it's like, and CGI Yoda bouncing off walls. It's like, okay. So I like the fight, and I love the fact that there's no music. It's just the sound of the lightsabers clashing against each other. So I really like that. It's really great. The sound, one of the best scores of all time, obviously. It's amazing. The Binary Sunset theme is amazing. The Princess Leia theme, obviously, is great. The ceremony scene, the medal ceremony theme is really, really great. Just mute my TV. Sorry about that. The ceremony scene is a great scene, but also of course the music, and just the music that plays in the battles and the Jawa like music and stuff. Just every piece of music is amazing, and really creates this great atmosphere. So I think without the score, it would feel like a very different film. I'm gonna do a comparison to one of my favorite shows, Twin Peaks, where one of the biggest aspects of that is the score. The score really creates the atmosphere of the show, and with Star Wars, it's almost exactly the same. Without that score, it would feel like a very different film, and it's a fantastic score. And yeah, just on a technical level, it's great. It's shot really well. I think the editing is also one of the major parts of the film, because I felt that A New Hope was basically saved in editing, because a lot of the footage, like when they were watching it, were like, this isn't very good, but the editing really saved it, and it's really great. And obviously the classic wipes, and one of my favourite wipes of all time, where the screen wipes as they pick C-3PO up, and it is really great. But yeah, it's an amazing film. Of course it is. It's A New Hope. It's well made, it's well acted. Harrison Ford is great in it. Alec Guinness is amazing as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He really brought a whole new level to the film. He was fantastic. Carrie Fisher as well, of course. Mark Hamill's good. And I think the main reason that I really like this film is obviously the kind of second half of it is the fun space adventure, action therein, the Millennium Falcon shooting, and Luke's like getting really excited that he's shot one, and Han's like, don't get cocky, kid, and they're running around the Death Star, and they save Princess Leia, they fall into the trash compactor, and that's a great scene as well. And again, a really funny scene where they start like screaming with joy, and 3PO thinks they're dying. So there's that half, the space adventure half, but the first half is this great setup, where it sets up the characters, it sets up the world perfectly. George Lucas really built and set up one of my favourite worlds, possibly my favourite kind of world ever. The universe of Star Wars is amazing, and he sets it up so perfectly with all the different creatures, ships, locations, and just like little lines of dialogue that just link to other things that we don't see in the film, and it just expands it. It's just like one little lines of dialogue that create entire different stories or different creatures in the thing and really expand it, and it feels like this real universe. And it's that setup. Also, you know, you see Luke in his normal little world. He's a farm boy, wants to go off to join, go to the academy, and his dad, I keep calling his dad. His uncle was like, no, can you stay on? And he gets a bit mopey about it. And I just love him in this world. Just him as a normal kid, just a normal guy, just in this world, minding his own business. And I really like that, just seeing that, and I think that's why it's one of my favorite of them, because for some reason I just really like seeing the Star Wars universe kind of normal, not action going on all the time, where they're just kind of at home. And that's one thing that I feel like Star Wars hasn't fully explored, is just normal, everyday people. They do that a lot more in the books, like in Lost Stars, which makes the experience of watching A New Hope very different. It almost makes you kind of sad when the Death Star blows up. But that really explores, you know, kind of normal life. And people, you know, they read books, they watch films, and you never really explore that in any of the films. And I feel like this is one of the closest we've got to Star Wars kind of just showing you normal kind of life of people. And I really like that. I mean, there are obviously other Star Wars films that do it. I mean, The Force Awakens has Rey in her, like, normal world at the beginning, which is why I also like The Force Awakens. Again, The Force Awakens is criticized for being very similar to A New Hope, and I would agree that it's very similar, but I don't mind that, if I'm honest. And that's one thing The Force Awakens does great, is it feels like A New Hope. It feels like Star Wars. But that's going off track. So yeah, there are so many great scenes in this film. Obviously, the binary sunset scene is amazing. It has some of my favorite shots of all time. I absolutely love the first person shot of the X-wing, like going down into the little kind of like the Death Star trench run bit. It's such a great scene. Just the way it's shot, the close up of it going in. For some reason, I just love that. And obviously the trash compactor scene is great. I like the Obi-Wan lightsaber duel with Darth Vader. Just everything about the film is great. It's funny, it's entertaining, it's fun. It builds this incredible world that you kind of get sucked into. As a great score, great editing, great sound. Just the sound is amazing. Great designs for all the creatures and everything. It's just great. And obviously the cantina scene is so amazing. Just all these different creatures and, you know, this dingy little thing. And I love the scene where Obi-Wan like cuts a guy's arm off, and you actually see blood, which is surprising that the film's rated U and you see a severed hand with blood. I mean, you can get away with that. I mean, even in Raiders of the Lost Ark, you see a guy with a spike going through his head and blood coming down. You wouldn't get away with that. Maybe not even in a 12A nowadays, which is sad. And he just cuts his arm off with a lightsaber and everyone just doesn't care. It's so great. That's one thing I would love to see more of, the kind of like dingy little cantinas. In fact, in episode 8, they seem to be going in the opposite direction. You're seeing kind of how the rich people live in these kind of casinos, which is something we haven't really seen yet, which I'm excited for. I will talk about the news that dropped about the new characters and locations in episode 8 in another video. But yeah, Star Wars: A New Hope, it's great. It's my favorite film of all time. It's amazing. Everything about it is great. I don't have anything bad to say about it other than the really stupid specialized editions. They are bizarre. They're absolutely bizarre. It's so strange. Like, I can understand George Lucas going back and adding things he wanted, but adding CGI rocks in front of R2-D2 is like, why? It doesn't make any sense. And also the fact that Star Wars is probably one of the most widely known and biggest films of all time, and we can't watch the original cut of it in HD unless you want to download like a fan kind of redo of it. You can't watch it. It's absolutely astonishing if you really think about it. One of the biggest films of all time, you can't even watch the original version of it unless you want to buy a VHS copy or download it from fan-made, like a fan-made version. It's absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, obviously I love the film. 10 out of 10, it's great. I will probably do reviews of all the other Star Wars films. I've already done, you know, Force Awakens and Rogue One, but I will probably do reviews of the other Star Wars films later on down the line. So watch out for those, and thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.